Okay guys, now let's have a look at how we can control our checkboxes using the value from a cell. So just to explain this quickly, what I'm just going to do is just add another one in here. What are we on? Checkboxes. I'm just going to hit one there. So we have checkbox 135, and I'm just going to highlight this cell just here, home, highlight, so we can see which cell we're looking at. Now, what we're going to do is right click this checkbox and we're going to choose Format Control from the bottom there. Now what Format Control allows us to do, we can change the colour and lines, size, protection, all different things, but the one we're interested in is the control, because we want to be able to control that particular checkbox. Now we can see here that we have checked or unchecked, unchecked, checked or mixed. So let's leave it at unchecked for a moment. And this is the interesting part here, this cell link. So what we're going to do is hit this little box and we're going to point to the cell that we've just highlighted. And you can see that that cell reference, let me just move that there. You can see that that cell reference has been populated into the box. So what we're going to do now is we have linked this checkbox to cell P19 and we're going to click OK. Now that hasn't done anything amazing at the minute. But what this checkbox is now doing is checking the value in this cell to decide whether it's checked or not. Now this is a simple Boolean test. It's either true, that is it's ticked, or it's false and it's not. So just for a second, let's just type true, hit enter, and we can see that the checkbox now is ticked automatically based on the value that we've entered into this cell. So if I were to type false, if I could type false, that would certainly be a start, and hit enter, you can now see that the checkbox is unticked. So I can just flip between the two, and based on the value in the cell, our checkbox, our new checkbox, is automatically ticked or not. Okay, so let's have a look at what we do with that over in the data entry screen. Okay, so we're back in the data entry screen, and now what we need to do is add a few more options down the bottom just here. So the options we have are vehicle. I forgot what they are. We have vehicle, we have fuel type and engine size. So we have vehicle, fuel and engine. Okay. Now what we want to do is link this cell, and this cell to the three tick boxes over here, 1, 2 and 3, and then below there we want to do this cell, and this cell to these three tick boxes, and similarly with the ones below, we want to have these cells referencing these bottom three tick boxes. Okay, so let's just color those in so we know which areas we're working in. So I've colored those in. Now what we want to do is, just for now, we're just going to type a random selection of true or falses across here. So I'm just going to pause while I type those in. Okay, so now we have a bunch of answers in here, and we have 1 true and 2 falses for each particular line to line up with vehicle, fuel and engine. So let's go ahead and link those to these particular boxes. So I'm just going to flip back to the expenses. I'm going to right click our first one, choose Format Control, hit this little box here, flip back to data entry and pick our first cell and hit enter. And OK, and now we can see the car has been ticked because the value in this cell is true. So I'm going to flip back to expenses, right click this cell, choose Format Control, hit this little box here, flip back to data entry and choose this cell and hit enter and OK. And now we can see that that box is blank and this box is ticked. Now let's just do the third one, Format Control, hit the little box, hit data entry and hit that box there, enter and OK. So now we can see that car is ticked and motorbike and cycle are unticked. But let's just go back here and copy false and paste it over that one, and let's type true in this cell. Whoops, T-R-U-E and enter. Let's have a look at the expenses and see what that's done. So there you go, that's worked perfectly. Now we have car unticked because the value is false, and we also have motorbike unticked because the value is false, but cycle has been ticked because the data entry now says true here. So again, I'm just going to pause the recording and I'm going to do the same for the next three and the three underneath. Okay, so now all of these individual checkboxes are referencing these particular cells over here. So we can see that we have 3 falses in the first column, which means we have 3 unchecked boxes. In the middle one, we have a false, and a true. So over here we have unticked, unticked, and ticked. And similarly here we have ticked, ticked, unticked, and we have true, true, false. Okay, what we want to do is limit the user to those 3 choices. So what I'm going to do is select this cell, and I'm going to come up to the ribbon to the data section, and I'm going to choose data validation. So I'm just going to left click, and we covered this in level 1 of this course, but just in case you've missed level 1, I'm just going to show you how to do it here. So we've gone to data validation, and this box has popped up. Now what we have here at the moment in settings is allow any value, and we don't want to allow any value. What we want to do is have a list. So I'm just going to left click list, and in here I'm just going to type the options that we want them to have. So we want them to have car, comma, we want them to have motor, was it motorbike? I think it said motorbike, or cycle, and hit OK. And now whenever the user selects this particular cell, which we're going to colour in to match the other ones, it's kind of a blue, we can put that right later if needs be. Whenever the user selects this, they only have a choice of 3 answers. They can either choose car, they could choose motorbike, or they could choose cycle. So we're just going to do the same for the next one, which is fuel. So we have petrol, diesel, LPG. So back to data entry, select the screen, make sure we're in data, hit data validation, and allow list. And we have petrol, comma, diesel, comma, LPG. And then hit OK. And again, we can see, let me just colour that in so it's the same colour, and I'll do that with the second one while I'm there. OK. So here they can only choose car, motorbike, or cycle. And when they select here, they can only have petrol, diesel, or LPG. And we're going to do exactly the same thing in the bottom one, which is less than 1400 cc, 1401 to 2000 and 2000 and back. So I'm just going to do that now. I'll pause and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so now we have all 3 completed. So in the first one, they can only choose from these 3 options. In the next one, they can only choose from these 3 options. And in the bottom one, they can only choose from these 3 options. Okay, now that's given us a very useful tool. Okay, now what we're going to do, now we have our answers in these cells just here, is we're going to add a logical test into each of these cells to look at these corresponding cells and report either true or false. Now we've looked at logical testing before, and we're just going to repeat what we've done. So in the first cell, I'm going to say equals if, because it's a logical test, open brackets, and our logical test will be if this cell equals open quotes, car, close quotes, comma, and then we want to report true if it's, now this doesn't have to be in quotes because it's a Boolean value, so it's either true or false, and we don't even need to add the second value, the value if it's false, because if it isn't true, it must be false. There are only 2 outcomes. So if B28 equals the text car, return true. If not, it will return false. Now because we have motorbike in here, you can see that that's evaluated to false, but if we choose from our little drop down box and pick car, you can see that it immediately changes to true. So now we can look at our expenses form and see that the car has been ticked. Now because we haven't done the other one, we also have cycle ticked. So we're going to do exactly the same for these ones over here. So this time we're going to say if, whoops, sorry, I forgot to say if, open brackets, this cell equals, open quotes, motorbike, close quotes, comma, return true. Remember, the true doesn't have to be in quotes because it's literally a Boolean outcome, true or false. We don't need to tell it the false because there is no other answer it could be if it isn't true. Hit enter. And then we're just going to do the same with the last one. So we're going to say if equals, open brackets, the logical test, look at this cell, equals, and I think the last one was cycle, close quotes, comma, return true, close quotes, and enter. So now we can see that we have car selected, which has given us an outcome of true in the first one, false in the second, and false in the third. So now we can see that we only have car ticked and we don't have motorbike or cycle ticked. But if we changed car to motorcycle, we can see that we now have an evaluation of false, true, false. And we can come back here and we can see that only motorbike has been ticked, which is exactly right. So that stops us being having multiple options ticked in here, because we've limited them to a list in this cell here, so they can only select one. And we have a Boolean test over here that can only evaluate to true or false, and therefore tick only one of the three boxes. So I'm just going to pause for a second, do the rest of them, and then come back to you and we can have a look at it working. Okay, all done. So now if we choose cycle, we can see we get false, false, true. And now if we pick the last one, which is LPG, we have false, false, true. And if we pick the last option, greater than 2000 cc's, we have false, false, true. And that has successfully populated the last three boxes over here. So now if we wanted to change this to car and the center one to diesel, we can see that we have true, true, true going diagonally. And here we have tick, tick, tick going diagonally. So there you go. That's how you use tick boxes. That's how you read values from cells to populate to either tick or untick the check boxes. And that's how you use a limit to list, so you can only ever get the responses that you want to look for and not allow the users to type in anything they want. Okay, see you in the next lecture.